Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello everybody and welcome to round 5 of the Radical Racing Challenge here on Apex Racing TV. I'm your host Ron Mons, and joining me, unfortunately not at the moment, but he will be joining us later after he gets some technical issues sorted out, is Taylor Stolworthy joining me in the commentary booth, with Joshua Wilkie doing a fantastic job already in the production hauler. Now I would pass it off to Taylor for some comments at the start of this race, but currently we are on our own, so I'll give my own pre-race blabber before we get into the action tonight. We're already 5 rounds into this year. I can't believe it myself. This season has been fantastic. It's been filled with action. We've gone to a wide variety of tracks too. We kicked the season off with the regular season opener at Road America, which was a fantastic race, certainly a lot better than the other race at Road America the season prior, where about 22 of the 24 drivers crashed in that race. So we got the year kicked off in very good fashion with a fantastic race then. Then we moved over to Spa, very fantastic and very famous track, as many of you probably know that track. And then we moved on to Green Hell, the Nürburgring, Nordschleife, for the 3rd race of the year. Then we went to Alton Park last week, and now here we are at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterey, California. I've mixed feelings about this track personally. You know, there are obviously some very fantastic corners. I mean, we're going to see Rafael Blanco, who we're following, who's currently 2nd in qualifying at this point. We're going to see him go through the carousel here. I believe it's about a 10-story drop. This corner is fantastic. There's been some very amazing moments that happen there, mainly Alex Zanardi going for the pass on Brian Herta on the last lap in the kart race here back in, I believe, 1996. So that's always a fantastic corner for these drivers to go through. But overall, this track, you know, it's obviously a great track. You know, it's a lot better than some modern tracks, I guess you could say. Some would call Tilkedrooms. I just call it like modern racetrack design, period. This track is fantastic. I have fun on it, and it looks like some of these drivers are having fun on it. Certainly Rafael Blanco is having some fun, as he is currently 2nd in this qualifying session. We're following Jorge Gonzaga, who hasn't had a very good qualifying so far. He's going to set another lap here. He's currently in 7th. That doesn't look like he improved on that lap, so he is going to remain 7th for the time being. Currently, your pole sitter, as we are at this point in qualifying, is Kimi Andrea Björklund, currently in 1st. He has set a very good time, very competitive time so far this session of a 1:18.45, but it's definitely not over. You know, you can see that gap between Blanco and Björklund on the front row. You know, it's not a lot of gaps, not a big gap between many of these drivers, which it does lead to some fantastic racing, and Bjorklund is going to grab the pole position. With that time, he sets a 1:18.45 to grab the pole position for tonight. We haven't seen too much of him, and the little bits that we have seen, he has been towards the front, so that's not the most shocking result. But I'm very surprised that Kane Halliburton hasn't showed up tonight. So let's take a look at your starting grid before we get to the start of this race. Bjorklund on pole, as I said. Rafael Blanco in second. Andreas Friedrich in third. We have Dennis Karakopoulos in fourth position, lining up at the outside of row 2. We have James Barry, Gordon Haug, Jorge Gonzaga in seventh. Mino de Graaf in 8th. We have Charles Krasik in 9th. We have Sebastian Kohn Vojas. I apologize if I butchered that name. He's in 10th. Enrio Baba, who we've seen before, he actually raced the first race of the season at an internet cafe, of all places, running a completely different name, so it's nice to see him back after he took the last race off. So completing your grid, we have Tony Dibben currently in 12th, Abdullah Mori in 13th, and we have Alvaro Comdemago. I apologize if I butchered his name. I do not believe he actually did set a qualifying time, so he will be lining up the last of the runners today. We've got a very interesting race on our hands. It's certainly going to be an interesting run going into the first series of corners, especially that Andretti hairpin. That's a corner where some drivers tend to understeer at times, but that'll be an interesting run. Pretty quick run into that corner, very interesting run. We're going to get the 5 lights out, and the drivers will be on their way. Going uphill, then they're going to shoot downhill as they go into the Andretti hairpin. It was a good start there from Bjorklund. Good start from both of our front row starters. Bjorklund and Blanco had a pretty great start there. There's a car in the dirt there trying to go through the inside. I don't know if that was the smartest tactic, especially early on in this race. But there's Kimi Andre and Bjorklund, who started from the pole position, maintaining the lead as they go through the first series of corners. Rafael Blanco still holding strong in second, and Andreas Friedrich in third. So we have some shuffling going on. You can see on the other timing screens there, I believe there's a mistake from Haug. Oh yeah, that's a big crash there. That's 3, I believe that was 4 cars around. Oh, there's another calamity there. That was Graf getting taken out by another driver. I'm not sure who that was, who forgot to hold the brakes as they speared across the track and into the path of him. So that's a very tough break for those drivers early on this race. We're riding on board with Blanco. He is still very close to the back of Bjorklund now, only a few tenths of a second gap between some of these drivers. So it's a very good race so far, besides the calamities farther towards the back with a lot of those drivers. It's a very clean start. I will say, as we see Bjorklund go off a little bit, do a bit of lawn mowing, while I say that, basically with this version of California with the dead grass, there's basically no grass at all around this course. So pretty clean start, besides some lawn mowing here and there and that calamity we saw in the mid-pack. Pretty clean start so far. I will say that the entry list tonight is a little bit weak, only 14 cars, which I believe is the lowest we've had so far this season. So far, a very interesting race on our hands. Bjorklund and Blanco seem pretty even on pace. You know, I mean, the whole field is pretty even on pace. These drivers are very close to each other. They always, I mean, they're obviously going to push each other to the absolute limits. They're going to race each other as hard as they can. But at the same time, these drivers are still extremely close, and at least it's some fantastic racing. We've seen some fantastic battles. We see some fantastic battling up at the front, I believe. That's Blanco who took the lead with Bjorklund. I believe he went around the outside of that corner there, so that was very good stuff there. As we see, I believe that was Barry doing a bit of lawn mowing there as we're riding on board with Andreas Friedrich. He's currently running in third. He's had a pretty decent race so far, but Blanco takes the lead from Bjorklund on lap 2 in this race. We still have a long way to go in this race, obviously. We still have a lot to play for in this race. What you'll see a lot in this race is you'll see a lot of strategizing when it comes to this stuff. You know, you'll have drivers that'll be like, yeah, I'm going to push it right from the get-go, but sometimes you're just going to have drivers that are like, yeah, I want to stay here. I want to keep my nose clean. I want to just tick the laps down. Then as the race enters its closing stages, as probably we hit around lap 15 or so, I think we'll see some of these drivers start to get their elbows out and start battling with these drivers even more. But you can see the closeness in the field between basically all the top 10 runners. Well, I say top 9 really. There's about 2 seconds lap time difference between those drivers, which in a car that's really as difficult as this one is to drive, you know, it's obviously a lot better than it was last season, where it was basically undrivable. But with this season, these cars are still, it's definitely a driver's car. You can make a lot of mistakes, especially at a track like this where you really have no asphalt runoff to speak of. So seeing in cars that kind of reward really good driving and also punish mistakes quite heavily around a track that punishes mistakes quite heavily, it's good to see closeness in the lap times as we enter lap 4 at the end of this lap here. Pretty interesting race so far. Blanco extending the lead. We're going to get a replay here of the other opening lap calamities that we saw towards the back of the pack. That was a strange incident. We'll get a wonderful replay here. Thank you, Joshua. And we're going to see, ooh, yeah, again, very loose there. And there was, yeah, a lot of drivers not holding the brakes there. A lot of drivers piling into each other. Some in the American iRacing scene may call that an example of ARCA brakes. That was just some drivers, I wouldn't say not using their heads, but, you know, you just got, if you're going to have an incident like that, especially at a track like this where, you know, it's not the most narrow track in the world, but it's definitely not wide either. You're going to have to hold the brakes when you have a mistake like that, and we saw what happens when a driver doesn't hold their brakes, and we saw a multi-car accident that really should have been a 1 or 2 car crash. But before I get pilloried by any of those drivers that are involved in that accident, or in my opinion caused that accident, we're going to go back at the front right now. Bjorklund, who started the race from the pole, led the first lap, then got overtaken by Blanco on lap 2. He is now falling in the crutches of Friedrich. He might lose second position here. These drivers are very close as Blanco starts to pull away. I say pull away. They're only about a half a second between them, which is definitely a lot better than any sort of action you'll see in Formula 1. Well, describing Formula 1 nowadays, action is a very strong word, but we're seeing some action here between James Barry and Enrique Baba. These drivers are battling in the final series of corners here, and it might be a 4-car battle here as Kirka Palace, who's currently running in the 6th position, is now going to start challenging Barry from the looks of it. These drivers are very close. You'll see some of this occasionally in this series. You'll see packs and pelotons, as I've said on multiple occasions, kind of can use those words interchangeably. These drivers will get involved in kind of a pack here and just start battling each other out. We saw at the race 2 of the year in Spa, we had about a 7-car pack at one point in that race. We saw last week at Alton Park, we saw a bunch of drivers were involved in a pack here, and right now, as you're seeing on screen, we have a bit of a 4-car peloton here, more of a 3-car, as Enrique Baba, who's currently running in 4th, starts to pull away from Barry, who's running in 5th. It's still kind of a 4-car pack here, though. We've got Baba slightly ahead, about a second ahead of Barry. Then we have Barry, Kirka Palace, and Gonzaga really close to each other, so that will be very interesting as this race develops. If these drivers start battling hard, we may see Alamari, who started towards the back of the field. He's currently running in 8th. Very good race from him so far. We might see him getting involved in this scrap here. We've seen this in this series before. These drivers, as I said before, they battle very hard, they battle very respectfully, but they still battle and claw for every position. Even if you're running for the last podium spot, if you're running for the race win, or even if you're running for P12 in some of these races, these drivers will have their elbows out trying to bite and claw for every position they can here. So you'll see that as this race develops. We'll definitely have to check in from time to time on that battle. But right now, you see Baba actually set the fastest lap of the race. He is faster than the 3 drivers ahead of him. So he might actually get involved in this battle here. Right now, Blanco is pulling away now 1.3, well, yeah, about 1.3 seconds between him and Bjorklund. And right now, the gap between Bjorklund and Friedrich is still very close, about a half a second between them. This will be very interesting to see, and it's also going to be very interesting to see this man, Enrique Baba, pull in on these drivers, just try and close that gap in. Right now, he's doing what you have to do in this series. You know, it's not about being flashy. It's not about pulling off very ballsy moves. It's all about just trying to hit your marks, keep it clean, and keep it on the road. If you do that and the drivers ahead of you start battling, as it looks like Bjorklund and Friedrich might battle here soon, if you just hit your marks and do as best as you can, you might get involved in this battle. We're seeing Enrique Baba close up quite a lot. You can even see the race leader, Rafael Blanco, from his cockpit view. So this is a very composed drive from Enrique Baba so far. He is definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. He's still got a while to close, though, so we definitely have a lot to play for here as we're about halfway through this, actually less than halfway through this race. We haven't seen all-and-out action. We haven't seen some, like, gutsy moves or anything like that, but we have seen some very interesting strategy take place so far. What I'm shocked that you haven't seen so far, though, is slipstream come into effect in these races. We've seen a lot in this series. Definitely saw it at the season opener in Road America, where drivers were weaving on the straightaways trying to break the slipstream. We saw them weaving from one side of the track to the other, just trying to break that slipstream and trying to do it as desperately as they possibly could. So I'm shocked we haven't seen that yet. At the same time, it's not the most surprising fact in the world. I was talking to our co-commentator Taylor, who I hope will be joining us soon. He was having some internet issues, so hopefully he can get those sorted out. That was very close, though, between Haug there. That was very close. He was trying to go for a gap that was pretty much always going to exist there, trying to go down the inside of Charles Krasik there. These drivers are currently running in the 12th and 13th positions. I believe these drivers were involved in the first lap skimmish back at the start of the race, so unfortunately for these drivers, they won't be contending for a top 10 from the looks of it, but they are fighting and clawing for that 12th position. I said a couple laps ago, these drivers will bite and claw for every position they can, and right now we are seeing a textbook example of that, as Howe goes to the inside there and gets the move done on Krasik there. Very composed move. You can see Krasik, the front end of that car. Both of these cars are looking really beat up. The front end of Krasik's car is looking more like a modified than anything else. So going back up at the front here, we have Blanco still pulling a lead, maintaining the lead that he has built in the last few laps of this race. He's currently at about a second and a half between Blanco and Bjorklund, and right now between Bjorklund and Frederick. Those drivers are closing in even more, and I said a couple laps ago, Baba was going to be a contender in this race. He is closing in tremendously on these drivers. Frederick is definitely going to have to worry about Baba as we come towards the halfway mark in this race. Gotta take a sip of water and catch my breath there. I've been talking for way too long, I'll tell you. As the other middle school outcast, I always tried to freak people out by talking to myself because I always thought it was funny, the sick, what I am. But yeah, I'm always kind of good at talking to myself, and that coming to play here, and we're going to see some playing here between Baba and Frederick. Baba gets the move done in the final corner. They're going to be side by side as they go down the main straightaway here. They're going to be side by side going into the Andretti hairpin here. These drivers are still very close. They're still very fast. All these drivers up at the front are still very competitive pace-wise. They're all within about, I think it's less than 2/10 between some of these drivers when it comes to lap time. So while they are pulling gaps here and there, they're still very close here at this front, at the front of the field here. Blanco, he's still pulling a lead. He's still about a second and a half between him and Bjorklund. Bjorklund's kind of in his own zip code, but if he continues the pace that he's been showing at this part of the race, he will probably start battling with Bjorklund, and who knows, if he gets a wicked turn of pace towards this race, or if Blanco's tires start to fall off as we enter the closing stages of this race, we could see a battle for the lead here, which would definitely be an interesting one to watch. Right now we're seeing a battle here between Barry and Kirkopalis there. Looks like Kirkopalis, he is closing to the back of Barry, but he's not going to go for a move going into the carousel. You could probably try and go for a move here. These cars are somewhat rigid. We saw the battle between Krasik and Haug there a couple laps ago. Those cars were beat up from the lap 1 crash that we saw, but those drivers were still battling very hard and trying to claw for every position there. And one thing that I have just noticed as we continue to follow this battle here, it looks like Kirkopalis might go for a move. He's going to be in the slipstream. We'll see how much he closes on the back of Barry. He looks to go around the outside. He is trying to go around the outside, going through the Andretti hairpin. This is a very good corner, I think, but he locks up and has to bail out of that move unless he goes for the crossover, which he does not, so he stays behind a Barry. But one thing I've just noticed, if you look on the left side of your screen at the top left of the live timing board, you can see that Haug is about 1 minute and 1 second behind Rafael Blanco. And these drivers tracking about 118 laps. This is going to be very interesting if lap traffic gets involved in this battle. I'm going to do a bit of research on my own. You can see the drivers towards the back of the field are tracking pretty slow lap times compared to the drivers up at the front. So this could throw a monkey in the works here if lap traffic becomes a big factor towards this race. Haug, I mean, we saw when he was battling with Krasik, as we see Baba go 4 wheels into the dirt there. That was very good. Luckily, he kept that thing on the straight and narrow there as he continues to look for a way to get past Bjorklund. But I think a lap traffic will come into an effect here. Haug just set a 1:25 on his last lap, and we're going to get a lap from Blanco here, I believe. Yeah, 1:18. So these drivers are tracking much quicker than Haug. So by the end of this race, lap traffic could definitely be a factor, and Baba is definitely a factor in this race as he gets the move done for the final Actually, no, that's for second there. My apologies. Between Bjorklund and Baba. Bjorklund, he started from the pole, he dropped down to second, and now he drops down to third. He had no choice but to let Baba by. Baba is definitely a force to be reckoned with. I mean, we still have a very long way to go in this race, but he has a pretty big gap to close. It's about 1.8 seconds between Baba and Blanco. So if he can just claw in a few tenths every lap, he can just put the pressure on Blanco and maybe force him into a mistake. That'd definitely be very interesting. I mean, Blanco, he's always been a force to be reckoned with, as I accidentally hit my phone with my water bottle. So if you heard some very strange noises, that's just some keyboard noises and possibly my phone breaking itself. But yeah, getting back to the topic of Blanco, he's always been a force to be reckoned with in this series. He won one of the races last year at VIR, and I believe he won the second race of the season. I believe that was the third race of the year. I could be mistaken. Yeah, he did win the third race of the year at the Nordschleife. So Blanco has always been a very fast driver. Last year, he did have a handful of mistakes, which did cost him some decent results here and there. But he has cleared up those mistakes, and he has definitely shown himself as a very good contender. But right now, Baba is showing himself as a great contender, closing 8 tenths alone on that last lap. He was about 8 tenths quicker than Blanco. Baba was 8 tenths quicker than Blanco. I'm losing track of names. I'm slurring words. I'm doing everything here. This is very interesting. This is going to be very interesting as this race enters its closing stages. We're on lap 12 of 18 here. We're about 15 minutes away. Well, 15 minutes into this race. My apologies. These drivers very clean so far, and Enried Baba looks like he will be a force to be reckoned with. I've said that about 5 times in the last few laps, but honest to God, the only word I can describe his pace so far, he is, saw Blanco have a bit of a lock up there. He's closed the gap now. It's about less than half a second between these drivers, so Blanco is definitely putting the pressure here on Blanco. This is going to be very close between these drivers. Baba, he's closing in on the pace-wise. He was about 2 seconds back of Blanco when he got the move done on Bjorklund about 2 laps ago. Now he could be looking at taking the lead if he gets a good enough run out of the final corner, gets a good enough slipstream. He's closing the gap. You can see that gap disappearing slightly, just a little bit, just creeping forward. He'll have to be very late on the brakes and very bold to try and make a move into the Andretti hairpin, which he does not. So for the time being, Baba stays behind Blanco, but right now it's only about a quarter of a second between those drivers, so that anything can happen with that battle there. Right now we're seeing another battle here between Kirkopalis and Barry. Those drivers were battling a couple laps ago, and now they're kind of, you can see, I was talking about how the battles between some of these drivers can drag other people in, and right now we're seeing a battle at the front here. There's Enried Baba. He goes for the move on the inside of Blanco there. He gets the move done, so for the first time since about lap 2, he held the lead for about 10 laps, but Rafael Blanco was no match for Enried Baba, who takes the lead. As we're on lap 13 of this 18-lap race, still plenty to play for here in this race. And at a track like this, where you have little room for error, one little mistake for Baba could cost him this win, and one little mistake for Blanco could cost him a chance at even a podium. Right now, Bjorklund, he has dropped back a little bit. It's about 2.5 seconds back, but he's still... This is still fairly close, all things considered, that or I've just been watching too much Formula 1, and whenever I see a gap below about 5 seconds, I'm like, man, this is some really close racing here. So, Formula 1 jokes aside, the point I was going to raise, well, the point I did raise a couple laps ago still might come into effect. Dennis Haug, who is currently the 13th place runner, I completely name-dropped another driver. He is not Dennis Haug. Just for the record, his name is Gordon Haug. Hopefully, I say hopefully, maybe they're related. I don't know. Maybe if he gets a chance to win one of these races, we'll have to ask him in the other post-race interviews, which we will hopefully get with Baba or Blanco or Bjorklund or Friedrich. Whatever driver is going to win this race, I would love to hear from them, because this race is always a good one to manage. These races are always fantastic, and it's definitely about tire management in some of these races as well. You can attack towards the beginning of this race, but as you get towards the end, the tires just fall off, and I think that might have been what happened with Blanco there. Blanco, you know, we saw him attacking Bjorklund towards the beginning of this race, and just trying to take the lead from him, which he did do successfully, but now he's lost the lead. The tire wear that he put, just the load on the tires that he put on at the start of this race could have cost him there. Right now he is dropping back from Baba. We're going to get the lap times here very soon. I believe Baba is still just pulling away. Right now it's about a second gap between those drivers. Yeah, you can see Baba's at a 117.9. Meanwhile, Blanca was at a 118.4. So touching on the other midfield battle that we've been following here that I haven't even paid attention to as I talk about the leaders. Here's a battle here. Kirkapallis tries to go for a move on Barry. He tried to look for the outside of the first part of the Andretti hairpin, then he goes to the inside, and now he's going to be stuck on the outside here going through turn 3. It's going to be very close between these drivers. There's contact there, and now look, Alamari closed up a lot there. He was coming in at a rate of knots there, and it looks like he is looking to try and go 3 wide with those drivers ahead of him. It looks like he is going to try going 3 wide. Those drivers are battling and clawing for every position. Dennis Kirkapallis tried to go for the move on Barry. It looked like it was successful, and now he's dropping back. Now we're following Alamari. These drivers are still very close. Gonzaga is in 5th. Alamari goes wide. That's going to be a big moment for him. He thankfully keeps it out of the barriers, but unfortunately for him, that'll probably take him out of the battle for at least the rest of this lap. But right now we've got a 3-car battle on our hands here between Gonzaga, Barry, and Kirkapallis, running 5th, 6th, and 7th currently. There's some very good stuff here. Water break. Always remember to take a water break. Usually I don't drink a lot of water, but having to do a solo broadcast, as unfortunately our co-commentator Taylor hasn't been able to, so that's unfortunate. But you always got to take water breaks. Right now we see some battling here. It's again between Barry and Kirkapallis. These two drivers have been battling throughout a majority of this race, and they're still battling, even though Gonzaga is involved and Alamari was involved. Alamari had that mistake. He's still a little bit back of Kirkapallis, Barry, and Gonzaga, but he is still closing up a lot. Alamari still has a very quick car. He is still tracking pretty good speed compared to these drivers. Right now it's very close between these competitors here. It's a 4-car pack. I was talking earlier in the race about how packs tend to form in some of these races. You'll have a 4-car pack, a 5-car pack, sometimes a 6 or a 7-car pack, which always leads to some fantastic stuff until there's an accident, which these drivers are always very good, very clean, so you don't expect or you don't hope for an accident, especially after the season opener last year. That kind of scarred me from ever seeing an accident in one of these cars again. So right now we're seeing that 4-car pack has now become a pack of 2. Here we have Kirkapallis and Alamari battling, and then we also have Gonzaga and Barry battling here. But knowing Kirkapallis, he's gone for a move on Barry basically every chance he can. So right now he's closing up to the back of Barry. If he gets a good run coming out of this final corner, he could go for it again, going into the Andretti hairpin. This will be very close between these drivers. Barry might look for a move on Gonzaga. I think he's too far away, but Kirkapallis is very close to the back of Barry. He looks for the outside again. He carries a lot of speed, and then I say that they're too far away. Gonzaga loses. It looks like he might lose that position to Barry. Barry is going to be stuck on the outside here, and Alamari got the position from Kirkapallis. I was completely oblivious to that. All of these drivers are battling here. This is very close stuff here between some of these drivers. You've got Alamari battling. He might try and go for a move on Barry here. Barry has been he's been used like a rag doll so far this race. Kirkapallis was trying to go for him, and when he tried to go for Gonzaga, he was just hung out to dry on the outside. But these drivers, they don't have to race each other. With the utmost respect, they're still trying to battle and claw for every position, so you can't just let them by, even at this part of the race. Right now, we've only got 2 laps to go. That's very close with Barry. He clobbers the inside curb, but he manages to get the move done on Gonzaga, but it looks like Alamari is going to get the inside of Barry there. That's going to be very close between these drivers as they go through the final 3 corners. They made contact there. That's a very big contact between Alamari and Barry. Side-to-side contact. Alamari does a little bit of lawn mowing there. Right now, we've got a 4-car pack here. Alamari was going side-by-side with Barry, and now Alamari looked like he was going on alongside with Gonzaga there. These drivers are going to be very close. Kirkapallis is now battling with Gonzaga. That is very close. We're on the final lap here. Baba, unless something major happens, it looks like he's going to take a victory as he's pulled a 3.5-second gap, nearly a 4-second gap between him and Blanco. Right now, Barry and Alamari, they're battling very close. Kirkapallis and Gonzaga are battling very close. Gonzaga had a very bad couple of minutes there. Barry had a very bad corner there. He is going to lose 2 positions from the looks of it unless he can hold off the challenge from Gonzaga, which he does. He manages to hold on to that position, but that will still be very close. It looks like we have someone joining us. I believe this will be Taylor. Taylor, you've been away from this. I might be able to take a break, but at this point, this is still very close. That's contact there between those drivers. Double contact there. Gonzaga gets pushed off a little bit from Barry. That was a hip check between those drivers. That is very close between those competitors. Well, I say very close. That was not close at all. That was just complete contact there with those drivers. This is a very strong battle. Baba wins. He takes a pretty commanding win after taking the lead from Blanco a couple laps ago. Blanco finishes second and Bjorklund finishes in third. But right now, the battle to watch for a lot of this race was towards the mid-pack of this field. Kirka Palace is looking for a move on Alamari. He's not going to be close enough. Maybe if there was a couple laps left, Kirka Palace would go for a move on Alamari, but they're not going to be close enough. Gonzaga dropped from 5th to 8th in those final few laps. Barry finishes in 7th, Kirka Palace in 6th, Alamari in 5th. That was a very hectic race, and I feel bad for my vocal cords after this. Good Lord. That was fantastic there. I'm going to have to take another water break. We're following Dibben. I nearly choked on my own saliva there. That was not good. Oh boy, that was some fantastic racing there. I'm whooped. All of the drivers have crossed the line. Surprisingly, it didn't seem like lap traffic became involved. Actually, I say that. I believe lap traffic was involved. That we just didn't get a chance to see while we were battling that, and while we were following that heart-pumping battle for final top 5 position. Alamari ends up holding on to it. That was a very good race from him. We saw he was going for everything there. He was using all the track and even the grass going through some of those corners, so he manages to take the 5th position. Oh my god, I am out of breath. I might have to take a breath here, play some elevator music or something like that. That is absolutely fantastic stuff, and this series always living up to the expectations that we've set for it. This series has always been fantastic, and if you want to watch some more of this, or if you want to be involved, our next race of the season is at Jerez. Yeah, the new track to the iRacing service, relatively new to the iRacing service. If you want to, you can join us. We follow the top split of the official series of the Radical Racing Challenge here on iRacing, and we cover it here on Apex Racing TV at, I believe it's 2100 UTC in the UK and about 5 o'clock p.m. my time here on the East Coast of the US. But we're going to get to our finishers here. It's going to be Enrique Baba taking a very fantastic win here. That was very good stuff there from him. That was fantastic stuff all around from him. He showed a lot of pace and manages to bring it home tonight in the 1st position. Rafael Blanco finishes in 2nd. He led the most laps in this race, but just couldn't close the deal after Baba went for that move and just had so much pace throughout this race. He was really just a force to be reckoned with. I've probably said that about 5 times already. Kimi Andre and Bjorklund, who started from the pole, finishes in 3rd. That may be a tough break for him, but he still put together a very good race. Andreas Frederick finishes in 4th. Alamari was involved in that fantastic battle. He finishes in 5th. We have Kirka Palace in 6th. We have Barry in 7th. Gonzaga in 8th. Condamego, who actually started last, he ends up finishing 9th. He had a very quiet race, all things considered. He ends up at 9th. And then we have Sebastian Cohn von Jaski. I apologize if I butchered your name. I definitely butchered it earlier because my my own live timing screen said Jas there, so I don't know what was going on with me. I got a technical issue to deal with there. Tony Dibben, who we were following after the checkered flag came out, he finishes in the 11th position. Gordon Haug finishes in 12th. Charles Krasik finishes in 13th. And Graf, who's involved in that first lap schism there, really no fault of his own. He was just innocent bystander there. He finishes 2 laps down. Very tough break for him. He finishes last tonight. That was some absolutely heart-pumping action from start to finish. It's definitely vocal cord killing action on my end. I am going to drink, I'm going to have a lot of cough drops after this. That was absolutely awesome stuff there from start to finish. And Reed Baba was definitely the star of the show here. He showed some fantastic pace throughout this race. It was fantastic. It looks like we have some drivers that we might get some interviews from, and the first, I believe, will be Dennis Kirka Palace. We will drag him in here now. Dennis, Welcome to the booth, my friend. We saw that you were involved in that fantastic battle throughout that race. How's the race from your end?
Sorry, I think I have a problem because I can't hear you.
Oh boy, that is unfortunate. Let me try and figure that out real quick. You know what? We'll do this as a old-fashioned way. We will type this into the chat. How was your race, man? I would love to hear. There we go.
I think it works now.
There we go. All right. You hear me? You got a copy?
Yeah, all good. I hear you.
Alrighty, so I had to type out the other question in chat, but I'll ask you now that you can hear me. We saw you were involved in that fantastic battle throughout that race. That had to have been some heart-pumping action, just being behind the wheel. How's the race from your end?
It was amazing. It was very intense. All 18 laps I was involved in a battle. At start just with one driver, then we were 4 drivers involved. It was just completely crazy.
Yeah, that was some fantastic stuff. We saw you were battling with Barry throughout all that. You tried to go for the move around the outside, then you actually got the move. You tried going around the outside a lot of times throughout this race. Would you like to explain your idea behind going for the other around the outside move at the first hairpin?
Yeah, sure. He defended well. He was covering well the inside, so I was thinking to try to go the outside, not to really pass, but to force him into a mistake, like maybe missing his braking point and forcing him to make a mistake. But he didn't make any mistake. He was driving really well.
We've definitely seen how mind games can play a bit of an effect in some of these races, and as you best described, trying to force the driver into another mistake, not forcing them off the track, obviously, but just trying to get in their head a little bit, just remain in their mirrors as long as you can, and just try and force them into a mistake a little bit. I was going to ask you one question to round off this interview. We've seen often in this series how the slipstream can play an effect. As a broadcaster, I can't really explain it too well, so could you explain to the viewers how big of an effect the slipstream has in these races?
To be honest, it depends on the track. Here on this track, it didn't have a lot of effect. I think on some parts of the track you can gain a little time, but some other parts you lose a little bit of a
little bit of aero on the front. You get a bit of dirty air.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It is kind of like a balancing game that you drivers have to play, because you obviously want to get the slipstream, because even though it doesn't play as big of an effect at a track like this where you only have one really long straightaway, it's still, you gotta play a bit of a balancing game to get the air on the front nose of your car to have some grip through the corners, but of course you still want to have that slipstream. So thank you for joining us. I appreciate that. I appreciate your insight into how that race went. Do you want to shout anyone out or give anyone some thanks?
The whole Radical community, of course, and you guys for commenting the race. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dennis Kirkopalis, you did a fantastic race. You're involved in a fantastic battle now, some heart-pumping action. As a man said, these races couldn't happen without the community, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you all. Dennis, thank you for joining us on this interview. I really appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day, man.
Bye-bye.
There's Dennis Kirkopalis, who finishes the race. He was involved in that fantastic battle throughout most of this race. He ends up in the 6th position. That was some heart-pumping action from start to finish. I hope you, the viewer, enjoyed it. And if you want to see more of this, you can definitely join us for the rest of this season. We're only 5 races into 12 races this season, so we've got some fantastic stuff ahead of you. As I said earlier in the broadcast, next Friday, we have the broadcast in Jerez. That'll be an interesting race for me. Me, personally, I currently do not own that track in iRacing, so I'll definitely have to get some experience around that track. I feel like the racing there is going to be very similar to the racing that we saw tonight, how a lot of the action that you'll see from the slipstream just won't be present, but you'll still see some fantastic racing as these drivers try and claw for every position. So that'll be a very interesting race, and we've got some very interesting racing all around here on Apex Racing TV. I know for me, for the next few races I'll be broadcasting here, I'll be broadcasting the iRacing Israel League race, which is always fantastic. We'll be racing at Legacy Phoenix, I believe it is, the Legacy Phoenix Road Course, so that'll be interesting on Monday, not June, we're in the wrong month there, my apologies, July the 17th, I believe that is. And then the very next day, we have the season opener for the ARL GT3 trophy that I'll be broadcasting with Sam Fitzpatrick, who does a lot of these big broadcasts. I'm feeling a bit starstruck having to do a broadcast with him, but for now, to save my vocal cords for the beating that they've took so far, I think that'll do it for this week. Well, I say this week. Yeah, this week, this broadcast, this evening of thrilling racing as we expect from this series. So that'll do it. For me, Ron Mons, Taylor Stolworthy, who unfortunately due to technical issues was unable to join us tonight, but he was very fun to chat with and talk him through the series in the other pre-race blabber that we have here on Apex Racing TV, and Joshua Wilkie doing a fantastic job with the cameras in the virtual production hauler. So for myself, Ron Mons, that'll do it for this week. Thank you all for watching, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use